10 sinister winter horror tales revealed for hauntingly cold nights of snow and unexplained terror. The snow fell heavy and soft, wrapping Maplewood's quaint homes into a thick white blanket. But inside Sarah's small living room, the warmth was fading. She had just lost her job at the grocery store, and the holidays loomed with an icy grip. As she decorated with hand-me-down ornaments, the cheer felt distant, like a memory made from someone else's happiness. Her kids, Jack and Lily, giggled as they helped hang tinsel, their laughter a fragile shield against the creeping unease. Outside, the world took on a perfect, eerie stillness. But soon, Sarah noticed footprints on the porch, leading nowhere in the untouched snow. Her heart raced. Were they real? She tried to shake off the unsettling feeling, blaming stress and isolation. Yet, as chilly nights grew darker, shadows danced just out of sight, whispering fears she couldn't shake. Then came Mr. Jenkins, the neighbor who seemed always cheerful while shoveling his driveway. But something felt off about him. Snippets of conversations revealed the man was a mystery, a part of a past riddled with whispers of misfortune that haunted the town. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. What did she really know about her seemingly perfect neighbors? The children started waking in the night, shaking and scared, talking about a shadowy figure outside their window. "Mommy, it wants us to come out," their innocent words twisted into knots in her stomach. Was she failing them? Struggling with fear, she felt the tension press upon her. She approached the local police, desperate for reassurance, but they dismissed her concerns. "It's just the stress, ma'am. You're a single parent, after all." Frustration simmered within her as her protective instincts flared. Every sound echoed loud, the wind shrieking in their ears like an unseen presence clawing at the edges of their fragile peace. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The storm came rolling in, snow whirling furiously. Sarah fought dread while her fingers scanned articles about Jenkins, buried under years of local stories. A chill crept into her bones with each new piece of information, a name here, a date there. Unexplained disappearances dating back decades, victims just like her. The town's secrets slithered through her mind, dark and unyielding. The nights grew longer, each clicking second a loud reminder of their isolation. Jack and Lily's night terrors only worsened, recounted tales of the malevolent figure coaxing them into the moonlit chill. Fear danced through the air, filling their modest home with a shadow heavier than the snowstorm outside. Then came the scream, a heart-stopping sound blending with the storm, echoing off the walls. Sarah's breath hitched as darkness enveloped them, and the lights flickered, plunging them into inky blackness. A soft knock broke the silence, sending icy frisons down her spine. She clutched the kids close, her eyes darting toward the window, half expecting to see that sinister figure waiting beyond the glass. The snow swirled wildly outside, her mind racing what lurked out there, just beyond what she could see. As an unfamiliar chill crawled beneath her skin, Sarah realized that the haunting question remained: when the snow melts, what will be left behind? The door creaked loudly, echoing in the stillness of the living room. Each knock sent a jolt of fear through Sarah, a bone-deep pulse of terror that made her freeze in place. Jack squeezed her hand, his small fingers trembling, and Lily buried her face into her mother's side, every bit of innocence shattered. "Mommy, what is it?" Jack whispered, his voice thin and fragile against the howling wind outside. They all listened intently, breaths held, the knock resounding again, this time lingering, as if whoever stood on the other side pondered their fate as well. "Stay here," Sarah managed to whisper, her heart a wild drum in her chest. She moved cautiously towards the door, steeling herself against the cold that seeped in through the gaps. Her instinct urged her to turn back, run, lock the door, keep the darkness out. But curiosity and the desperate need for assurance propelled her forward. As she reached for the knob, her thoughts swirled chaotically. What if it was someone lost in the storm? Someone needing help? But then again, what if it was him? What if Mr. Jenkins had come for them? The knob turned under her trembling fingers. The door cracked open, revealing nothing but a wall of white. The storm had intensified, snow swirling violently like a swirling vortex. Yet, as Sarah peered out into the eerie quiet, she felt it a gaze, cold and heavy, watching her from just beyond the curtain of snow. She could feel the weight of it, a tangible force that clawed at her mind. "Get inside!" she barked, heart racing, instinct overcoming her better judgment. She shoved the door shut, locking it tight, barely managing to block out the foreboding sense of dread that loomed just beyond the threshold. Jack and Lily huddled closer, their little bodies trembling. "Mommy, what was it?" Jack asked, his eyes wide and filled with fear. "Just the wind," she lied, not believing her own words. But deep down, she knew the wind didn't knock. The air in their small home felt thick, as if the very walls were listening. As night descended fully, enveloping them in darkness, shadows grew and shifted against the walls, taunting her with their movement. Even as she turned on every light, their flickering seemed to drawn from a power beyond her control. The storm raged outside, muffling the world, but the creeping sense of dread was stronger now, a choking pressure filling every corner of her mind. Then came the sound, a soft lullaby, distant but distinct, floating on the wind as if it was beckoning. It haunted her, sending shivers down her spine. "Stay away," she whispered under her breath, clutching her children tightly to her. "It wants us," Mommy Lily murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, gaze lost in the swirling darkness outside. Panic surged in Sarah. "It's just a dream, honey." "Just a dream," she reassured her, even as her heart raced with the fear that perhaps it wasn't he. The realization hit her hard. What if the shadow, the ghost of this town's forgotten history, was more than whispers? What if it had come for her and her children? A loud crash interrupted her thoughts as something struck the window, rattling the glass, eliciting screams from the children. Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps as she turned reluctantly to face it. The white blur outside pressed against the glass, forming a murky shape of face. Hollow eyes stared back at her, an indescribable despair reflected in its gaze. Before she could react, the figure melted into the storm, and all was quiet once more. "What do you want?" she rasped, her voice hollow in the stillness of their home. The only answer was the howling wind, and the dark silence that followed begged the questions none of them could answer. As she held her children close, trembling and terrified, they all wondered what lay in store for them as the night deepened and the shadows grew. But as horror loomed thick around them, one chilling thought coiled around Sarah's mind: what if the storm wasn't just a storm after all? What if it was a harbinger of something far worse? The clock ticked louder with every second, each tick a reminder of the dark forces gathering outside. Sarah's mind raced, searching for a solution, a reprieve from the mounting terror that threatened to overtake her family. She felt the cold fingers of dread tighten around her throat. She wanted to scream, to shout into the night, but the thought of awakening whatever lurked beyond the door kept her silent. "Mommy, I'm scared," Jack whispered again, his voice breaking like glass. "Me too, sweetheart," she said, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. She did her best to make it sound reassuring, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. The lullaby outside rose and fell like a ghostly tide, wrapping around them with its chilling embrace. "Please, just stay close," she urged, pulling both children into her lap, their small bodies trembling against her. The weight of the night pressed heavily on her, a blanket soaked in fear. Suddenly, a series of knocks echoed once more, sharp and insistent, shattering the silence. But this time, they weren't muffled by the wind, they were closer, sinister and deliberate. The sound was raw, like nails dragging across the wood. Jack scrambled to hide behind her, while Lily clutched her mother's arm, knuckles white. "Who is it?" Sarah demanded, her voice cracking, though she wasn't sure she wanted an answer. What do you want? The only reply was that haunting lullaby, slipping through the cracks of the door like smoke. Sarah's skin prickled. It was drawing nearer, wrapping around her like icy vines. Desperation clawed at her mind. Should she call for help? What if she opened the door again, only to find it? Mommy Jack whimpered, his eyes huge and glistening with tears. She shushed him, her heart hammering so loud she thought they could all hear it. She scanned the dim room as shadows shifted, twisted shapes that threatened to take form. With the flickering lights casting erratic patterns, it felt as if the room itself was alive, hungry. Suddenly, the power flickered, plunging them into darkness for a heartbeat before the lights sputtered back, the bulb flaring like a star before settling. In that heartbeat of chaos, Sarah felt a presence, cold and penetrating. It wasn't the storm. No, this was something else. Something unfathomable. And then it came a whisper, curling directly into her ear, so clear it felt intimate, "Let me in." Her breath hitched in her throat. "Get away from the window," she shouted, dragging her children further from the glass. The vision of that hollow, despairing face tightened her chest. Fear coursed through her veins like ice water. Forcing her mind to think logically, she stumbled toward the kitchen. She needed a weapon. Something to protect her children. "Stay in the living room," she instructed, her voice insistent. She fumbled with the kitchen drawer, hands shaking violently until her fingers found the knife hidden among the utensils. Just then, the whispers resumed, echoing around the room with renewed strength. "Let me in." The lullaby twisted into something darker, accompanied by a scratching sound on the wood, a terrible insistence that sent shivers down her spine. The children clung to each other, wide-eyed. Sarah felt like a cornered animal. Her heart raced as she turned to face the door, the knife gripped tightly in her hand. "Who are you?" she shouted, the desperation rising in her chest matched only by the escalating terror behind that door. She felt small against the relentless shadows, and then silence fell, thick and suffocating. Just when she thought she couldn't take it anymore, the doorknob turned slowly. All of her instincts screamed at her to run, but she couldn't. Not while her children were in the room. "Stay back!" she yelled, voice cracking. The door creaked as it swung open, and in the muted light of the storm, something stepped over the threshold. What waited beyond was a question that would forever change their lives. Sarah's grip on the knife tightened. It was now or never. Before she could see clearly, the figure spoke, and in that instant, she realized they were not alone in the storm. And perhaps the storm had come to claim them after all. The shape inside the doorway was tall and shadowy, its features obscured by the flickering light. Sarah's breath quickened, heart pounding so hard she felt it echo in her ears. Was it human? The figure tilted its head, a movement so eerie it made her stomach churn. "Let me in," it repeated, voice like gravel scraping against stone. "Stay back," Sarah warned, keeping the knife firmly at her side, sweat trickling down the small of her back. Jack and Lily huddled closer together, their eyes wide, pupils swirling with fear. "Please." The figure's voice trembled like branches in a harsh wind. "I need shelter from the storm." But there was something wrong about the way it spoke. The words dripped with an unsettling melody, too calming amidst the chaos. Mommy Jack's voice cracked, uncertainty slicing through his fear. What if it's lost? Her heart was torn, the maternal instinct to help clashing violently with the primal fear surging through her veins. "No, Jack. It could be a trick." But she kept her eyes fixed on the figure, every instinct screaming at her to run. "Mommy, it looks sad," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. That innocent pity threatened to send Sarah over the edge. Sad? Or dangerous? Thought Sarah, the knife feeling like a fragile comfort in her grip. "Let me in." The apparition's eyes glinted briefly, like shards of glass reflecting a dim light. She could feel its gaze probing, seeking entry not just into their home but into their very souls. The wind howled, rattling the windows behind her. Shadows danced in the corners, whispering secrets Sarah couldn't bear to hear. She took a step backward, dragging Jack and Lily with her, their bodies pressed into the wall. "You have to help me," the figure insisted, its voice rising in desperation. "They'll come for me." They? The word sent alarms blaring in Sarah's mind. What hunted this creature? What sought it? No. Her voice was steadier, more resolute now. "I want to open the door. Not to you. Not to anyone." The figure's expression darkened in a way that made goosebumps prickle along her arms. "Do you think you can keep it out? You can't hide forever." A feeling of dread washed over her, cold like ice in her veins. There was something lurking just beyond sight, and suddenly the howl of the wind morphed into a sinister laugh that echoed through the darkness outside. "Mommy, what if it's true?" Jack's tiny voice trembled, uncertainty creeping in. Fear locked inside Sarah's throat, squeezing the words from her lips. "Don't listen to it, honey. It's trying to trick us." But as darkness swallowed the room once more, doubt clawed at her. How could she be sure? The sound of scratching returned, more frantic, more insistent. Something was clawing at the windows now, a rhythm that matched the erratic beat of her heart. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily cried, and Sarah's heart broke. I know." She tried to sound soothing. The shadows weren't the only ones hiding in the dark. Every inch of her bristled with the urge to escape, but they were trapped here, ensnared like insects in a web. Then, a jarring crash jolted Sarah from her thoughts. A shattered window somewhere in the house echoed through the silence, the glass raining down in jagged pieces like broken promises. "Let me in or they'll take you." The figure advanced a step, the light flickering, revealing glimmers of its true form, a pale face, gaunt and hollow. An unsettling smile crept across its lips. "We need to leave," Sarah shouted, her voice full of terror. She turned to grab her children, but the world around her shifted. The moment stretched endlessly, horrors swirling in her mind. Where would they go? How to escape? The figure outside laughed again, a hollow, mocking sound, sending chills down her spine. It wasn't just a storm they faced, something more insidious was rising, and she could feel it within the walls, ready to pull them into an abyss of despair. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed something reflecting in the dim light. A shadow in the corner. No, not just a shadow. "Run!" Sarah screamed, the instinct screaming louder than her fear. But the knife slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor as darkness enveloped them all. The storm was just the beginning. The true horror was only just setting in, and they were out of time. As the laughter converged into a cacophony of terror, the door behind them swung open wider, revealing the chaos beyond. "Maybe it's too late," a voice whispered from the shadows, sending another wave of dread cascading over Sarah. What had she brought upon her family? The frigid air rushed into the house, chilling Sarah to the bone. She whipped around, panic coursing through her veins. Jack and Lily tugged desperately at her hands, eyes wide in terror. The world beyond was darker now, shadows stretching at unnatural angles as if swallowed by something insatiable. "Mommy. Please." Jack's voice quivered, a sharp edge to his fear that made her stomach drop. Sarah turned back to the doorway, heart racing. The figure stood there, blocking the threshold, a silhouette against the swirling storm. It breathed in heavy, labored gulps, the sound a grotesque mixture of desperation and hunger. Sarah backed away instinctively, feeling the walls constricting around her. Her mind raced. What exactly was she shielding her children from? Was it the creature at the door? Or something worse lurking in the dark corners of their home? "Let me in," the figure rasped again, a haunting echo that sent shivers down her spine. The shadows behind it seemed to swell, pulsating like a living entity eager to break free. Suddenly, with a sharp crack, the lights flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. "Mommy!" Lily cried, clutching her tighter. The sound of their breaths filled the silence, quick and shallow. In those chilling moments, time stretched painfully thin. The storm outside raged on, becoming a monstrous symphony of horror. And then, a whisper not from the figure, but from within the house itself. "Help me. Help us," it echoed from above, from somewhere within the walls of their home, a voice unrecognizable yet hauntingly familiar, as if it belonged to someone they once knew. "Did you hear that?" Sarah whispered, eyes darting to the ceiling, her body stiff with dread. "What was that?" Jack shook his head, fear etched on his tiny face. "I don't want to be here, Mommy. I want to go home." "This is our home," she replied, though uncertainty trembled in her words. The reality of their situation pressed down on her like a heavy weight. There was nowhere to run. No safety. The figure outside took another slow step forward, shadows twisting around it, pulling into the depths of its being. "You cannot deny the storm forever." Its voice shifted, dripping with mockery, and Sarah realized it was no longer asking for entry, it was demanding it. Tension sizzled in the room. Sarah's instincts flared. With her heart launching into her throat, she turned back to her children. "We need to run, now." But as she raced to the back door, she froze. Liquid darkness seeped from underneath the doorframe like ink spread across a page. It swirled and pulsed, glistening as it beckoned with an almost sentient hunger. "We're trapped." She gasped, her voice rising in desperation. Lily whimpered, clinging to her as if her tiny body could somehow absorb the surge of fear. The walls around them shuddered, seeming to vibrate with an unseen presence. "Open the door, and the darkness will leave you," the figure promised, its eyes glinting like predatory stars in the muted light filtering through. "It's the only way you can save them." "Save who?" Sarah blinked, a million thoughts rushing through her mind, panic sparking a sense of urgency she could barely comprehend. "This is not just a storm. It's a countdown," it replied solemnly, the din of scratching growing louder. "Every heartbeat brings them closer." The very air around them felt charged, electric with terror, as the realization crashed into Sarah. This was no simple creature. It was the harbinger of something much worse, something hunting them, waiting for darkness to consume every shred of hope they had left. "No! I want to let you in," Sarah shouted defiantly, though fury mingled with terror. Suddenly, in response to her defiance, the lights flickered back on, revealing pitch-black eyes that devoured the light and twisted into a grotesque grin. Too late it hissed, and the wind screamed in agreement. A loud crack echoed through the house. The darkness at the back door surged forward, a black tide ready to overwhelm them. "Run!" Sarah screamed again, pushing her children away, ready to face the encroaching nightmare. There was nowhere left to hide. Just as they turned, a chilling laughter filtered from behind, echoing off the walls and drowning out the storm. "Where will you go?" And with that, the darkness surged, swallowing the laughter whole. "Maybe you can't escape after all," a voice whispered from deep inside the shadows. What awaited them beyond the door? What hunted in the storm? Time was running out. The air felt thick, almost suffocating as Sarah tried to catch her breath. The walls vibrated with each reverberation of laughter, a cruel serenade to her unraveling sanity. "Stay close," she commanded, gripping their hands tighter as they began to edge toward the living room, the blackness not far behind, crawling forward as if it were alive. The wind howled outside, sounding more like a wailing spirit than a mere storm. Shadowed corners of their home had taken on a life of their own, seething with a malevolent energy that pressed against her skin, making the hairs on the back of her neck rise. Every instinct told her to flee, yet her mind raced with nagging questions. What did the figure want? What darkness awaited them? The suffocating shadows seemed to pulse with a palpable hunger. Jack's voice quaked, drawing her focus. "Mommy, make it stop." His terror felt like a blade twisting in her gut, and she couldn't let him see her fear. "We need to find somewhere safe." She scanned the room, a normal living space turned prison. The couch seemed to slump like a defeated beast, and the curtains flapped ominously against the window, whispering secrets. The attic. Sarah blurted out, memories rushing back of their old hideouts. It was instinct, a last desperate hope. Without hesitation, she turned and shambled toward the stairs, which creaked underfoot in protest. As they climbed, shadows elongated and distorted, creeping closer. Sarah felt eyes upon her, an invisible weight pressing against her back. She glanced over her shoulder, and the figure was near pooling at the bottom of the steps, the twisted grin still fixed on its face. "You're not going to escape," panic surged. Climbing faster, Sarah shoved Jack and Lily ahead of her. "Go! Go!" she urged. The attic door was only a few steps away, but fear of the unseen threats behind her fired her muscles. They scrambled into the attic just as the shadows reached for them. Sarah slammed the door shut and leaned against it, heart pounding ferociously in her chest. The sound of scratching reverberated throughout the wood, relentless, as if something beyond hungered for their panic, feasting on their hopelessness. "Mommy," Lily whimpered, her voice barely a whisper. "I can hear it, shoo, baby, just breathe," Sarah instructed, though her own breaths felt shallow. The attic was dim, cluttered with dust-laden boxes and old furniture draped in ghostly sheets. A faint light peeked through the cracks in the wood, and it was all that kept her sane, a tether to the world she once knew, but that fragile piece shattered as the scratching escalated to a frantic pounding, the door warping beneath the pressure. Sarah's mind raced. What do I do? What do I do? In a moment of realization, her gaze swept across the attic. The old trunk her grandmother had kept for years caught her eye, and a desperate thought ignited. Maybe if we hide. We could. Another round of pounding silenced her, followed by a low, sinister chuckle seeping from the cracks in the door. "Hide all you want, but you can't hide from your own shadows." The trunk. She rushed to it and flung it open, but the sound was deafening in the stillness of the attic. Jack and Lily hesitated, eyes wide in horror as the door quivered ominously. "It wouldn't hold forever. Get in," she urged, pushing them down into the trunk. It was cramped, and the dust tickled Sarah's nose. "You have to be quiet," she whispered urgently before she closed the lid. A horrible ceiling of despair. Outside, the laughter returned, echoing through the space. "You think this is a game?" The voice rasped, full of malice. It beckoned eerily from the other side, and Sarah felt a chill creep across her skin. There was little she could do, but for now, she could bide her time. "I'll protect you," she promised, pressing her hand on the trunk, feeling their muffled whispers below. But what price would that protection demand? And with that question, the attic door splintered a single crack, revealing a sliver of darkness. What came next? It was just the beginning of a nightmare drawn from her deepest fears. As the shadows poured in, the laughter morphed into something demonic, a chorus of despair echoing in her soul. Where was the line between sanity and madness? As she braced for whatever horror awaited her in the dark, her heart thundered with a singular thought: she had to choose to fight or succumb. But would she have time to decide? The door creaked wider, a threshold between the living and the damned. What would come out of the shadows? The crack widened, a dark throat swallowing light, and the air shifted, colder and more suffocating. Sarah pressed her palms against the trunk, her fingers trembling. The laughter outside twisted into a hideous melody, scraping against her mind like nails on a chalkboard. "Get ready," she whispered to Jack and Lily, though she couldn't tell if they could even hear her over the cacophony. She could almost feel the shadows breathing, searching for weakness. They'd find none in her, not if she could help it, but doubt whispered back, settling deep inside her chest. What if it's too late? The gnawing fear tightened its grip, and a shiver ran down her spine as the door quaked once more, straining against the force of whatever lurked on the other side. A pause. Just as the house held its breath, some instinct within Sarah urged her to look, to peer into the abyss where sanity threatened to crumble. She edged back and glanced through the crack, heart pounding like a drum. It was there. The figure stood, stretching, dripping shadows that pooled around its feet. No more than a silhouette, yet somehow she felt its gaze piercing through the darkness. It knew she was there. It had come for them. The laughter subsided into a low growl, resonating deep within her bones. Lying will get you nowhere, the voice slithered, each word polished with malice, fear intertwined with anger. Sarah clenched her jaw. She couldn't let them win. I won't let you take them, she shouted, her voice rising until it felt like it could shatter the air itself. The laughter returned, mocking her brave words. What was she doing? Time was running out. The pounding returned, more relentless than ever, and the trunk trembled, rattled against the floorboards. Mommy, what is happening? Jack's small voice trembled from inside, filled with dread. Stay quiet, she hissed, heart racing as she fought to think. The trunk was their only haven, but it wouldn't hold forever. She needed a plan, something to defy the darkness creeping closer. Within the attic, shadows danced wickedly among the scattered furniture. Hunched over the trunk, Sarah felt suddenly constricted, claustrophobic even though she was only watching over her children. The figure pressed against the door, its fingers curling like gnarled branches, trying to rip through reality. Can't you see? You can't protect them. You can't even protect yourself. It taunted, its voice dripping with sinister delight. Breathless, Sarah snapped her gaze back toward the trunk. What had her grandmother kept hidden in there? She had to try. It was their only shot. Whatever you are, you win. She shouted, steeling her resolve. Swiftly, she lifted the trunk lid just a crack further and retreated. Jack and Lily stared up at her, eyes wide, full of innocent terror. Stay in there, no matter what, Sarah warned, lifting the clutter inside until she stumbled upon an old, weathered journal. Its cover crackled under her fingers. Next to it lay a shimmering amulet, an oddity amongst dust and memories. Everything her grandmother had turned into shadows of the past danced in her mind. Stories of protections, of sealing away evil. This had to be something. The attic door buckled ferociously now, the figure plainly visible through the splintering wood. It hissed, a sound that sliced through the air. She draped the amulet around her neck and clutched the journal to her chest. If this doesn't work, she whispered, throwing herself into the flow of boundary-defying thoughts. She flipped open the journal, pages yellowed and fragile. Panic coursed through her as she searched the lines, praying for something to combat the growing shadows that threatened to consume them. She raised her voice and recited what she found, though doubt clawed at her insides. Ancient shadows, hear my plea. Leave this home and set us free. The laughter fell silent, the shadows paused, their crawling limbs frozen in disbelief. But she could feel the heaviness in the air shift, a violent energy sparking around her, and then, just as quickly as it started, it turned. The shadows flickered and the door splintered violently, collapsing inward. Sarah gasped, eyes wide as the darkness surged forward. She could feel it clawing at her, 1,000 cold fingers grasping for her flesh. Mommy! Jack cried, the finality of fear breaking through the fragile wall she had built. In that moment, time stretched, her heart thundering in her ears as the shadows lunged for her. Would the amulet work, or had she sealed their doom with her own words? With a cry of defiance, she faced the darkness head-on, gripping the journal like a lifeline. The shadows enveloped her, and she steeled herself for the fight of her life. But as she stood firm, something unexpected pulled her into a swirling void. What awaited her in that chilling embrace? Was it salvation or the end of everything? The shadows bore down on her, a suffocating blanket of nightmares. And she was about to find out. The void consumed her, wrapping around her body like a heavy fog. A cacophony of whispers surrounded her, voices blending together in a chilling symphony. It felt as if time had no meaning here. Sarah screamed, but no sound escaped her lips. Suddenly, warmth. A flash of light rushed through the blackness, a stark contrast that almost blinded her. She stumbled to a halt, finding herself in an eerily familiar room, the attic, yet not the attic. It was the same space but stripped of its clutter and decay. Everything glimmered, pristine and unsettlingly bright. Sarah squinted against the light. Was this a trick of the darkness? She turned slowly, searching for her children, her breaths coming in desperate gasps. Jack! Lily! Panic clawed at her throat. In the center of the room stood a mirror, its surface so clear it looked like a portal. Drawn by some unseen force, she stepped forward. The reflection before her was her own, not the disheveled mother from the attic but a glowing, ethereal version of herself. Sarah, her reflection spoke, voice as sweet and honeyed as a lullaby. Are you ready? Ready for what? She growled, feeling the flicker of authority slipping from her hands. You're not real. Oh, but I am, her doppelganger replied softly, a cryptic smile spreading across her face. I am the truth you've buried. The part of you that knows how to survive, to fight. Images danced behind the surface of the mirror, visions of shadows looming, creeping toward her children. The thought made her stomach twist. If you're real, then tell me, how do I save them? First, you must face your own fears, the reflection said, her tone light as air. Confront what lies within you. Only then will the shadows lose their grip. Outside the mirror, an unsettling rumble shook the space. The shadowy figure from before drifted in the corner of her vision, its dark form intent, eyes glimmering with malicious glee. It encroached more deeply into her reality, a curtain of darkness tearing through the bright confines of this haunted sanctuary. Do it, Sarah, the reflection urged, hand reaching toward her, shimmering as if made of stars. Embrace your strength. The shadows crept closer, enveloping the edges of her vision. Panic gripped her heart, and she felt the corners of sanity fraying. Yet in that chaos, a flicker ignited within her. She took a step, then another, her fingers brushing against the cool surface of the mirror. I'm not afraid, she murmured, though doubt quivered beneath her breath. Then show them, her reflection implored, urging her onward. Show them your true power. With one swift motion, she plunged her hand into the mirror, heart racing as it pulsed like a heartbeat. For an instant, she felt weightless and free, like a haunting memory breaking through the depths of anguish. Chilling clarity flooded her veins, and she slowly drew forth a glowing shard, the essence of pure light and defiance, but the shadows surged, ravenous and ready to consume. You think that can save you? They hissed, taunting her, weaving around her feet like venomous snakes. No! She roared, gripping the shard with newfound strength. I want to let you take them. The pulse of light set off a chain reaction, the shadows recoiling in confusion and rage. They writhed, the very air thick with their torment. But she had to hurry. Somewhere, amidst the chaos, Jack and Lily awaited her. With determination blazing in her chest, she turned back to the mirror. I'm coming for you. As she started toward it, the shadows howled in desperation, clawing, reaching. You'll regret this, Sarah. They shrieked, just before she could step through the portal. Tentacles of darkness lashed out, aiming for her legs, and she felt the relentless tug of panic. The mirror flickered, losing its luminosity. Desperate, Sarah hesitated. Would plunging into its depths lead her back to the attic, or to a nightmare that not even hope could defeat? With heavy breaths, she prepared to leap back into the unknown. What awaited her on the other side? Was the light strong enough to shield her children from the shadows? Time hung in balance, and the darkness wouldn't stop its assault. Everything felt distorted. The brightness of the mirror dimmed further, and shadows wrapped around her like grasping hands, their cold touch stinging her skin. Time stretched into an agonizing eternity as she stood on the precipice of fear. With a single breath, Sarah lunged through the mirror. Cold air engulfed her. The world spun, drawing her in, until with a sickening thud, she landed hard on a wooden floor that felt almost familiar. She lay there, gasping, heart pounding like a war drum. Light flickered, illuminating the attic once again. But it was different now, a chaotic blend of beautiful light and looming shadows. In the corner, the mirror stood sadly dull, its surface reflecting the dim chaos around her. Broken. Jack. Lily, she called again. Panic twisted through her like a serpent, constricting her throat. And then she saw them, huddled together beneath a pile of tattered blankets in the gloom. Their small bodies trembled, eyes wide with fear, yet they did not move. "Mommy." Jack's voice was a whisper of broken glass. Sarah rushed toward them, fear pulsating in her veins. But as she drew closer, a deep rumble reverberated through the walls, the shadows bleeding into the room from cracks and corners. They were growing thicker, more palpable, sentient in their hunger. "Get out. Now." She pointed towards the attic door. "Run, children." But the shadows coiled around the furniture, forming claw-like shapes, creeping steadily toward her children. The air thickened, the warmth of urgency switched to icy dread. "They won't let you leave," a rasping voice slithered from the darkness. A distance that felt like a heartache. The shadowy figure was there, larger than ever, its eyes burning like embers. "You cannot escape your fears. You are bound to us now." Terror turned her blood to ice. She had seen this creature before, lurking, whispering, and now it was emboldened, reveling in her despair. "No!" Sarah screamed, rage and fear igniting within her. She held out her glowing shard, the halo of light enveloping her, pushing back the shadows momentarily. "You will not take them." The shadows recoiled, writhing in agony. But the dark silhouette didn't falter. If anything, it absorbed that light, swelling larger and more grotesque. Its laughter echoed in the attic, a warped mockery of joy. "You think you are strong? I was born of your fears, Sarah. You cannot escape what you are." She felt the weight of his words slam against her chest. The truth buried deep inside clawed its way to the surface. Could it really be true? Could her own growing fears give this monster power? "Mommy!" Lily cried out, eyes brimming with tears. Sarah's heart shattered. She reached for her children, pulling them close. "I will protect you." But the shadows kept advancing, relentless, trailing like smoke. The air grew colder, their howls reverberating through the room as they reached for her. With a last surge of will, Sarah concentrated on the light pulsing from the shard, channeling all the love and protectiveness she felt for her children into it. "Illuminate the darkness," she proclaimed, willing the light to expand beyond its limits. The light exploded, radiating outward like sunburst, blinding the shadows and forcing them to shriek. "No!" They howled, retreating, twisting in pain. Sarah shielded her children with her body, urging them forward, her heart pounding. "This way!" she shouted as she began to run, leading them toward the attic door. Just as they reached it, the very ground beneath their feet shook violently. "You can't leave," the voice seethed, a blend of rage and sorrow. "Open!" Sarah screamed, but the door wouldn't budge. The shadows regrouped, emerging with renewed hunger. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her. She thought of Jack and Lily, their faces splattered with tears, and she felt a spark of defiance ignite within her. "Step aside!" she shouted. And in that moment of despair, she birthed a powerful vision, the door exploding free, sending light cascading around them. Was it merely a fantasy? Or could she truly create her own escape, as the darkness surged toward them? She slammed her shoulder against the door. Would it hold? Would they be free? A loud crack echoed through the attic, and then, nothing. All hope hanging in the balance, she could only wonder if surrendering to the shadows was the only option remaining. What would she choose? What would become of them? As the crack echoed through the attic, Sarah's heart raced. She felt a surge of power coursing through her veins, igniting a fierce determination. The darkness crashed forward like a hungry wave. It was now or never. With every ounce of strength, she slammed her shoulder against the door once more, pushing as if her life and her children's depended on it. The wood buckled under her force, splintering just enough to expose a bright shaft of light beyond. "This is our chance," she shouted, holding tightly to Jack and Lily, her voice echoing in the chaos. She turned the knob, and with a shuddering gasp, the door burst open. Sunlight flooded the attic like a forgotten dream returning. The shadows shrieked, recoiling helplessly, their dark forms flickering like dying embers. "Run! Now!" Sarah shouted, urgency spilling from her heart. Jack and Lily sprinted past her into the dazzling light, but the shadows thrashed and screeched, desperate to reclaim what had slipped through their grasp. Drawing what felt like the last breath of courage, Sarah lunged forward, pulling the children to safety. As they burst through the doorway, the sharp winter air filled their lungs, crisp and unyielding. Snow whirled around them, dancing like joy reborn. They staggered across the threshold into an open field, the warmth of the sun bathing their pale skin and easing the lingering chill. Behind them, the darkness howled, a tempest of rage and despair, but it was fading, the entrance to the attic glowing dimmer and dimmer. "Mommy! Is it gone?" Jack turned, expecting to see the shadows thrashing in fury, but the door was disappearing. It crumbled, fine dust spiraling into the winter air as the echoes of terror grew distant. Sarah pushed her hair back from her face, taking in the sight of her children, their breaths fogging up in front of them. "Yes, baby, yes," she whispered with a shaky laugh, her heart slower yet still racing. "It's over. We're free. Can we go home?" Lily's small voice cracked, echoing the uncertainty swirling within Sarah. "Home," she echoed, the word resonating like a promise. As they turned away from the remnant of the haunted attic, Sarah pulled them close, wrapping her arms around them as if to shield them from ever feeling that fear again. The snow-covered world before them seemed impossibly beautiful, the air glittering with hope for what was to come. They turned on their heels, heading toward the warmth of their home, unified in the tender light of the day. With each step, they shed the bonds of the past, the whispers of shadows, the grip of despair. The bond they shared, forged anew in the crucible of fear, folded around them like a protective cocoon. "I want to make cookies," Jack piped up, his innocent enthusiasm piercing through the heaviness of the night they'd endured. "Yeah, with a mountain of frosting," Lily chanted, bringing back the remnants of lost holiday wonder. Sarah smiled, her heart lighter. "Let us make a mountain. And we'll have hot chocolate with marshmallows." She laughed, a sound that bubbled up from her weary soul. With renewed hope and purpose, they crossed the threshold into their home. They would fill it with warmth and laughter, filling the empty spaces with memories and love. Together, they had faced the dark and emerged into the light. And as snow fell gently outside, encasing their little world in a warm, soft blanket, Sarah knew that they would always come together, no matter the storm. They were family, and in the end, love was the strongest light of all. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, you need to subscribe now. Hit that subscribe button immediately so you don't miss out on more exclusive tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat, and don't forget to smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Your engagement makes all the difference. I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and your theories about what you just read. Let us chat about the ending. Finally, please, share this story instantly with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Thank you for being a true fan and supporting our community.